South Korea's police agency confirms a cryptocurrency theft by North Korean hackers 5 years ago, worth 58 billion won from a local crypto exchange. Ukraine uses British Storm Shadow cruise missiles this time to strike Russia, and Moscow reportedly responds by firing an ICBM. Putin, meanwhile, is reportedly open to discussing a ceasefire deal with Trump. Deadly Israeli airstrikes on Thursday reportedly killed dozens of people in northern Gaza amid challenging efforts seeking a ceasefire. It's November 21st, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We begin with authorities here having confirmed a sizable cryptocurrency theft by North Korean hackers in 2019. It could have been used to fund the regime's illicit weapons development. Kim Jong-sil has this report.
South Korean police have for the first time officially pointed at North Korea as the culprit of a 2019 cryptocurrency heist. In November 2019, North Korean hackers stole 342,000 Ethereum worth 58 billion won at the time from the South Korean exchange Upbit. Today, that value is estimated at over 1.49 trillion won, or just over $1 billion. According to the Korean National Police Agency on Thursday, investigators identified two North Korean hacker groups, Lazarus and Andariel, as responsible for the breach. The conclusion comes from evidence gathered through IP addresses, cryptocurrency tracking, and cooperation with the FBI. Police also uncovered traces of the North Korean phrase "허란일," meaning unimportant matter, on a computer used in the attack. Police stated that 57% of the stolen Ethereum was exchanged for Bitcoin through 3 exchange sites, while the rest was laundered through 51 foreign exchanges. Although the exact use of the funds remains unclear, it is suspected that they may have gone to fund North Korea's nuclear or missile programs, as previously reported by the UN and foreign governments. After 4 years of legal and diplomatic efforts, South Korea, in collaboration with Swiss authorities, reclaimed 4.8 Bitcoin valued at 600 million won, which was returned to Upbit last month. The authorities continue to work on recovering the remaining stolen assets and strengthening efforts to prevent future cybercrime. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The UN nuclear watchdog chief says the uranium enrichment facility in North Korea, which Kim Jong-un recently visited, appears to be an unreported one at the Gangsan complex as the regime accelerates developing its nuclear program. Kim Bo-kyung explains in detail.
The IAEA chief stated that the highly enriched uranium production facility North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited in September appears to be an undeclared facility at the Gangsan complex near Pyongyang. Director General Rafael Grossi made this remark at an IAEA board meeting in Vienna, Austria on Wednesday. Referring to images published through Pyongyang state media that showed centrifuge cascades and other infrastructure, the nuclear watchdog said these were consistent with the layout of a centrifuge enrichment facility, along with the structure of the main building of the Gangsan complex and its newly constructed annex. Previously, on September 13th, the KCNA reported Kim inspected the site that can produce weapons-grade nuclear material, revealing the highly enriched uranium production facility, though its exact location was not specified. This marked the first time the regime has unveiled a nuclear facility directly through its media since November 2010, when Pyongyang showed a facility with 2,000 centrifuges to U.S. nuclear physicist Siegfried Hecker and his team. The IAEA said such a display of an undeclared enrichment facility at Gangsan and the call to further strengthen the foundation for producing weapons-grade nuclear material are of serious concern. Grossi added that there are indications that the centrifuge enrichment facility at the Yongbyon nuclear complex also continues to operate. Intermittent activity continues at the experimental light water reactor there, said the IAEA chief, which aligns with ongoing commissioning processes. The 5-megawatt reactor at Yongbyon was not operating between mid-August and mid-October, which experts at the nuclear watchdog believe gave the North enough time to refuel the reactor and start its 7th operational cycle. Regarding the Punggye-ri nuclear test site in Hamgyong-Bukdo province, it remains prepared for a nuclear test with no major changes so far. Stating that such a revelation of undeclared enrichment facilities and the ongoing commissioning of the light water reactor were clear violations of UN Security Council resolutions, Grossi urged Pyongyang to fully comply with resolutions and swiftly cooperate with the IAEA. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, for the 20th year in a row, a UN General Assembly committee has adopted a resolution denouncing North Korea's human rights violations. Yoon-ji tells us more.
The United Nations Third Committee, which handles human rights and social affairs, has adopted a resolution on North Korean human rights. It was adopted by consensus by 61 countries, including South Korea, at a meeting in New York on Wednesday local time. The committee has been adopting the resolution on the human rights situation in North Korea every year since 2005. This year's resolution not only contains a united message from the international community urging the overall improvement of human rights in North Korea, but also includes concerns about new areas that were not part of previous resolutions. First, it expressed concerns about the possible negative impact the human rights situation could have on separated families, noting that North Korea announced earlier in January that it would no longer pursue reunification with the South. And second, the paper also urged the North to ensure the right to freedom of thought and religion, and the right to freedom of opinion and expression, by reforming all practices and laws that suppress these rights. It also called on the regime to permit the establishment of independent newspapers and other media. South Korea's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations said during Wednesday's meeting that it's already well known the North provides zero freedom of expression and severe punishment for merely watching South Korean dramas.
It is with a heavy heart, however, that there has been no improvement, but rather deterioration in North Korea's systematic, widespread, and gross human rights violations, which amount to crimes against humanity.
South Korea's foreign ministry said in a statement that it welcomes the committee's adoption of the resolution and said it hopes discussions on the human rights situation in North Korea will continue to take place actively at the United Nations. Yoon-ji, Arirang News.
Elsewhere, tensions escalate between Ukraine and Russia as the former now uses British Storm Shadow missiles against Russia, while the latter fires an ICBM. Against this backdrop, reports suggest possible ceasefire talks between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Cha Yoon-kyung has the latest.
Ukraine on Wednesday local time launched the British Storm Shadow cruise missiles, which have a range in excess of 250 kilometers against targets in Russia. This comes a day after Ukraine fired US-made ATACMS missiles into Russian territory for the first time after their use was this week approved by US President Joe Biden. British newspaper The Daily Telegraph reported that fragments of Storm Shadow cruise missiles were found in the Kursk region, where North Korean troops are deployed. The British government has refused to comment about the use of its long-range missiles, but officials confirmed that Defense Secretary John Healey spoke to his Ukrainian counterpart Rustem Umerov on Tuesday night. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said during the recent G20 summit in Brazil that he would not be deterred from supporting Ukraine.
We have stood with Ukraine from the start, and I've been doubling down in my clear message that we need to ensure that Ukraine has what is needed for as long as is needed to win this war against Putin.
While the U.S. said Wednesday that it would support Ukraine with anti-personnel landmines in a reversal of its current policy, 5 current and former Russian officials told Reuters that Vladimir Putin is willing to discuss a Ukraine ceasefire deal with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on the condition that Ukraine abandons its ambition to join NATO. Meanwhile, Reuters also reports that Russia fired an intercontinental ballistic missile during a morning attack on Ukraine on Thursday. The Ukrainian Air Force said the ICBM was launched from Russia's southern Astrakhan region, shooting down 6 additional Kh-101 cruise missiles during the attack. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, fresh Israeli airstrikes on northern Gaza have reportedly killed dozens. Meanwhile, the U.S. has once again vetoed a UN resolution calling for a Gaza ceasefire, highlighting global divisions as diplomatic efforts to end the conflict falter. Moon Hye-ryun has more.
Despite ongoing efforts to broker a ceasefire, the conflict between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas continues to escalate, with fresh airstrikes reported in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli military escalated its offensive in northern Gaza early on Thursday, targeting residential areas and causing extensive casualties, according to local health officials the same day. Rescue teams reported dozens trapped under rubble, with Hamas media claiming 57 fatalities, though this figure remains unverified. The day before, Gaza health officials reported 48 deaths from Israeli strikes. These casualties are the latest in Israel's military campaign in Gaza, which has resulted in nearly 44,000 Palestinian deaths over 13 months, according to Gaza officials. Meanwhile, international efforts to broker peace face setbacks as the U.S. vetoed a UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire, citing the absence of a provision for the release of hostages held by Hamas.
We made clear throughout negotiations we could not support an unconditional ceasefire that failed to release the hostages. Because, as this Council has previously called for, a durable end to the war must come with the release of the hostages. These two urgent goals are inextricably linked. This resolution abandoned that necessity, and for that reason, the United States could not support it.
This drew sharp criticism from global leaders, with only the U.S. from the 15-member council voting against the resolution. In Washington, the Senate rejected measures aimed at halting arms sales to Israel, reflecting bipartisan support despite concerns over Gaza's humanitarian crisis. Critics, including Senator Bernie Sanders, argue these sales violate U.S. laws prohibiting military aid to human rights violators, while proponents contend Israel faces existential threats from regional adversaries. Under U.S. arms export control laws, Congress can block arms sales to foreign countries through a joint resolution that is passed by both the House and the Senate and is not vetoed by the President. As diplomatic efforts stall, humanitarian conditions in Gaza continue to deteriorate, with UN officials warning of imminent famine and inadequate medical care. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
As the low birth rate in the country continues to pose a challenge, the private sector is also moving to address this issue. For that, improving the work-life balance of working parents have become a key word. It's topic of our business segment this week. Our economics correspondent Lee Soo-jin joins us in the studio. Soo-jin, what's being done to better achieve the work-life balance?
Right, Jung-min. So there's various efforts that are being made nationwide in order to boost the nation's low birth rate. And this includes companies both big and small that have introduced various measures that are aimed at helping workers or their employees improve their work-life balance. I was able to visit two such firms and talk to the working moms there, so let's take a look.
I think all working moms can agree that one of the toughest situations is having to go to work even when your child suddenly falls ill.
It's a struggle that working parents across the world grapple with. And it often deters people from starting a family, which is why firms like this bank have built daycare centers for their employees as part of efforts to improve the work-life balance for working parents. Lee Hang-hyun drops off her 3-year-old son at the daycare each day at around 8 a.m. and picks him up after work. And because it's a corporate daycare center, she's not the only parent who does so.
At other daycare centers, most children get picked up by 4 p.m., so I would worry about my son being there alone, but now knowing there are many other children, I worry less and can focus better on my work.
The centers also have programs using educational puzzles and games to teach children social skills and basic concepts in language and math. They also plan to hold open houses after work hours and during weekends to give parents insight into their children's progress. And such daycare centers will soon be open to other working parents.
Starting March next year, employees from small and medium-sized companies will also be able to send their children here.
This just adds to efforts already undertaken by SMEs, as this makeup company introduced flexible working hours for its employees in January 2022. Managed entirely online, the system allows employees to choose their daily work hours as long as they complete the required monthly schedule of around 177 hours.
These days, pediatric clinics are so crowded that you have to start queuing as early as 5 a.m. But because I was able to adjust my work hours, I was able to take my child to the hospital.
Kim Sol-mi, whose son is 23 months old, says that this has enhanced her work-life balance.
The hardest part is being at work when your kid is at home sick, because you just worry about them. But having control over my work hours has been a huge help.
The company says the number of births and marriages has tripled since they first implemented the flexible working hour system, showing how policy supporting a good work-life balance for working moms like Lee and Kim can help Korea address its low birth rate.
Sujin, why improving this balance matter?
Well, first of all, as you know, there are many different factors that have contributed to the low birth rate. This includes high costs of education and housing, but the recent upward trend in employment of women has led both the private and public sectors to put more emphasis on a work-life employment basis. Here's what a government official said.
Employment of both women and married women have reached record highs. This is why the government is focusing on 3 key areas to increase the birth rate, the first being work-life balance, followed by childcare and housing.
Are there any policies that working parents can look forward to in the future?
Right, there are actually several. The Ministry of Employment and Labor says that the changes that working parents have asked for the most are higher pay and duration of parental leave. And with the National Assembly passing bills in September aimed at helping working parents, these changes will take place starting in February next year. Let's take a listen to what some of these changes are.
Parental leave, which people have been very interested in, is being extended from 1 year to 1.5 years and 2.5 years if both parents use it. And the maximum for parental leave pay has been raised to 2.5 million won, or around $1,700.
All right, thanks for the updates, Sujin.
Thank you for having me.
President Yoon Jung-min is back home, having touched down here in Seoul earlier today from his trip to South America. That being said, our Oh So-young sheds light on the gains of his latest diplomatic agenda.
President Yoon Jung-min's week-long trip to Latin America featured South Korea's multidimensional diplomacy as he reinforced bilateral and minilateral partnerships to tackle global challenges. Coming at a significant time in geopolitics, with former US President Donald Trump set to return to the White House in January, as well as Russia and North Korea's military cooperation, all eyes were on Yoon's key bilateral summits on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Peru. Amid concerns that a second Trump term could undermine America's network of alliances, the South Korean leader held a trilateral and separate bilateral meetings with US President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. To preserve Seoul, Washington and Tokyo's three-way partnership on deterring North Korea and tackling challenges to regional peace and prosperity, the leaders agreed to launch a trilateral secretariat to institutionalize their agreements made at Camp David last year. The South Korean leader also held a rare sit-down with Chinese President Xi Jinping for the first time in 2 years, signaling progress in their relations. Yoon called on Beijing to play a constructive role in squeezing North Korea as the regime's nuclear missile threat continues to grow. Still, with tensions expected to rise between Washington and Beijing, Yoon made it clear that choosing between its closest ally and biggest trading partner is a false dilemma. He told Brazilian media that while Seoul will anchor its foreign policy on the Korea-US alliance, it aims for communication and a constructive partnership with China. Another key outcome of Yoon's trip to Lima was his bilateral summit with Peruvian President Dina Boluarte as he marked his first official trip to a Latin American country. The two sides inked deals on strengthening cooperation on defense, minerals, infrastructure and ICT as comprehensive strategic partners. Yoon also met with the leaders of Brunei and Vietnam for the first time and the Canadian Prime Minister for their 6th summit. During the G20 summit in Brazil, Yoon also held a minilateral meeting with the leaders of MICTA, Mexico, Indonesia, Korea, Turkey and Australia, reaffirming their support for principles of international law, multilateralism and international cooperation amid growing conflicts in the world. Finally, Yoon's multilateral diplomacy aimed to enhance South Korea's role as a global pivotal state, contributing to global growth and governance, leveraging its experience of turning from a war-torn country into an advanced IT powerhouse.
The central themes of the APEC and G20 meetings were promoting inclusivity and growth and building a just world and sustainable planet, both addressing humanity's sustainable future, a goal attainable only through shared growth between advanced and developing economies.
Yoon highlighted Seoul's role as a bridge of prosperity and a green ladder linking developing and advanced economies by sharing its IT solutions for social inclusion, contributions to beat poverty and hunger, and efforts to promote an inclusive green transition. Wrapping up his multilateral summitry, President Yoon assured that South Korea will uphold its commitments and responsibilities, especially as its southern city of Gyeongju hosts the APEC summit next year. He introduced the summit's theme of building a sustainable tomorrow, connect, innovate, prosper. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Rio de Janeiro.
The Korean Railway Workers Union says it'll begin a full-scale walkout on December 5th if its demands are not met. Those include higher wages and increased staffing. At a press conference held in Seoul Station, the union stated it would launch an indefinite strike unless the government and Korea Railroad Corporation change their positions. For the fourth consecutive day, the union's slowdown protest has been causing delays in some subway operations in the Seoul metropolitan area. According to the Railroad Corporation, 14 out of approximately 470 trains running between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Thursday were delayed by more than 20 minutes. Boy band 17 will become the first K-pop artists to perform on Disney's annual holiday special in the U.S. The band's agency, Pledis Entertainment, announced on Thursday that the group will perform a set on December 1st, including the Christmas Carol, Santa Claus is Coming to Town on ABC's holiday special, The Wonderful World of Disney Holiday Spectacular. This year marks the 9th edition of the program. 17 will share the stage this year with other superstars, including Elton John and John Legend.
The ultrafine dust continued across the country today. Due to stagnant atmospheric conditions, the concentration of ultrafine dust was in the bad category in the Seoul metropolitan area, Chungcheongbuk-do province, and Gwangju during the daytime. It will expand to the southern inland areas tonight and continue until tomorrow morning. No more cloudy and dusty skies tomorrow. Instead, late autumn conditions will prevail with clear skies. Temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius will be seen for the daytime in Seoul. However, morning temperatures will stay at single figures all over the country. Tomorrow morning, Daejeon will start off at 4 degrees, Gwangju 8 degrees. Highs in Daejeon and Gwangju will move up to 12 degrees, Busan and Jeju 15 degrees. Rain is forecast across the country early next week, and daytime temperatures will plummet dramatically. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session up next.